Hey friends, welcome to our channel. Let's begin with today's new video. They thought she was just another beginner. They thought her father was just another face in the crowd. But when a black belt mercilessly tightened his grip around young Emily's neck during a sparring match, nobody in that dojo realized who was watching. Seconds later, the quiet man in the corner, her father, stood up. And the moment he did, every single person in that room learned what legend truly meant. Emily Statham had grown up with the shadow of greatness looming over her. Her father, John Statham, wasn't just respected, he was feared in circles most people didn't even know existed. A decorated martial artist, a former special forces operator, and the kind of man who had once walked into impossible fights and walked out alive. But to Emily, he was simply Dad. At 16, Emily wanted to prove herself. She had begged him not to treat her like a porcelain doll, not to shelter her from challenges. So, when she joined the local martial arts academy, she didn't go in announcing her last name. She wanted to earn respect on her own, without her father's shadow stretching across the mats. The dojo smelled of sweat and old ambition, its walls lined with trophies, black belts, and motivational phrases. To Emily, it felt like stepping into a world where she could finally build her own identity. But there was one problem: ego lived here too. Across from her stood Mason, a 24-year-old black belt with sharp eyes and a reputation for teaching lessons to anyone who thought they belonged in his class. He didn't like newcomers, and he really didn't like the confidence Emily carried into the room. The sparring match started as a simple drill, but Mason's strikes carried venom. Every punch, every kick was harder than it needed to be. The crowd of students shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. And then it happened. Mason caught Emily off guard, locked his arm under her chin, and pulled her into a chokehold. The pressure on her throat was instant. Emily gasped, clawed at his forearm, her legs kicking against the mat. This wasn't training anymore, it was punishment. The instructor hesitated. He should have called it, but Mason was his prized student. "She'll learn," he muttered under his breath as Emily's face turned red. From the back of the room, John Statham sat in silence, his arms folded, his eyes unblinking. For years, he had promised Emily he wouldn't interfere in her battles, that she needed to stumble, fall, and rise on her own. But as Mason's grip tightened, John's jaw clenched. His daughter's eyes flickered toward him in desperation. And in that single glance, something inside him snapped. He stood, and though he hadn't spoken a word yet, the air in the dojo shifted. Mason's friends smirked, unaware. The others whispered. They had no idea who this quiet man really was. What happened next would leave them speechless. John walked onto the mat with the calm of a man who had faced real battles, wars where mistakes meant death. His steps were deliberate, each one sending a shiver of unease through the room. Mason finally released Emily, who dropped to her knees, coughing for air. "Lesson over," John said, his voice deep, steady, and impossible to ignore. But Mason wasn't backing down. He grinned, trying to mask the flicker of fear building in his chest. "Who even are you? You can't just step in. This is my dojo." John's eyes narrowed. "Your dojo? Then you won't mind if I show your students what real control looks like." The room went dead silent. Students pressed against the walls, phones ready to record. Even the instructor didn't move. Something about John's presence froze him in place. Mason laughed, though his bravado was cracking. "Fine, old man, let's see what you've got." What followed was not a fight, it was a masterclass. Mason lunged first, throwing a wild kick meant to intimidate. John sidestepped with fluid precision, barely shifting his weight. Mason struck again, faster this time, but John's hand snapped out, parrying the blow and locking Mason's arm in an instant. The black belt's face twisted in pain as John maneuvered him like a puppet. Every move John made was measured, efficient, and devastating. He didn't strike to hurt, he struck to teach. He demonstrated angles, leverage, and balance in ways the students had never seen before. Mason, once the cocky predator, was now a struggling shadow, gasping for mercy. Finally, John released him with a controlled push that sent Mason sprawling to the mat. You don't earn a black belt by choking children, John said firmly, his voice echoing. You earn it by protecting them, by teaching them discipline, respect, control. Emily's chest swelled with pride, tears in her eyes, not because her father had saved her, but because he had reminded her what true strength looked like. The students clapped quietly, then louder, until the dojo erupted in applause. Mason lay humiliated, his ego crushed, and for the first time, Emily understood the weight of her father's legend. John knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. I promised I'd let you fight your own battles, but never mistake that for leaving you alone. I'll always be here, always. The crowd fell silent again, many of them realizing they had just witnessed something they'd tell for years to come. That moment when a father became more than just a man. He became a legend. Strength isn't measured by the belts you wear or the fights you win. It's measured by how you protect, how you teach, and how you rise when others fall. And sometimes, the greatest lesson isn't about winning, it's about showing the world the power of respect, honor, and love.